Stanley, thanks so much for letting me come to your awesome premise.
Yeah.
I know you guys are on the move, so maybe I'm one of the last
Yeah,
podcasts
maybe
from
actually.
the old story as you head into what's the next chapter? Chapter 25
Yeah,
or
something like that.
But, bro, before we kind of kick into this corridor, can you just introduce yourself to
Yeah.
people in my audience who
Yeah.
probably are familiar with you but would like just a reintroduction?
Yeah, cool. So my name's Stanley. I'm the founder of a company called The Attention Seeker. We're essentially an organic social media agency these days. We do a bunch of stuff around marketing and social media and content production. We're quite well known for our ability to take things viral.
Yeah, awesome, bro. I want to chat to you today about mentorship, but before we kind of head down that road, I realized when I was coming here today, I don't know too much about your kind of come up. And I guess I just want to, if it's okay with you, kind of head back to like, what did you want to be when you were young? Like, do you reflect on that? What was your vision for your life?
Yeah. I've always wanted to be, to make video games.
True.
Yeah, that's always been my thing. It's still definitely something I'd want to do in the future.
Yeah.
I went to school. When I went to university, I first started doing software engineering and coding and learning how to make games. I used to make games on Excel. So I used to do like coding in Visual Basic on Excel and make little games and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I went to uni to do it. And then for some dumb reason, I thought, if I just do this, I'll just be the guy coding. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who owns Activision. Okay, I'm going to go do a Bachelor of Commerce.
Yeah.
That was my stupid thoughts, right? It turned out that in 2008, when all my class of software engineering graduated into 2007, then the iPhone dropped and they all started making apps for iPhone. And yeah, they're all doing all right for themselves now. But that was kind of what I wanted to do. But always in my DNA has been this entrepreneurship, like sort of like drive. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, built and busted businesses his whole career. And so I've always wanted to do it since I was young, doing like lemonade stands and selling stuff on like, what was the old, there was like the old classified thing, Traders. I can't remember. It was like a book you used to get, like a newspaper on the Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. You used to sell stuff in that, buy and sell. So I've always done little businesses on the side. But watching my dad boom and bust made me go have a career for the first 12 years of my life.
Yeah, right.
Because I was a little bit nervous of like going all in.
Yeah.
And so actually it was probably the smartest thing I did though, because I got a real education in business through hotels.
Yeah. And just on that, like, do you think your dad had a good temperament for risk?
Yeah, dad was, he definitely took a lot of risks. I think what I learned from my dad was how to hedge my bets better.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So, like for instance, in this business, I'm not needing this business to develop a retirement plan for myself because I have a really good superannuation set up for my career that is enough to retire on. So my bets are hedged in that this business could fall over. It could fall over at 64, but that's okay because my super will pay out at 65 and I'll be good.
Yeah.
And so I've hedged my bets somewhere there that I don't need it to do the long-term play. It needs to do the short-term play, which allows me to go for broke and just build it as big as possible.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'd rather try and sell it for billions and fail at nothing than sell it for a few million and wonder what could have been.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. And I think, I guess I'm sitting here wanting to learn as much as I ask.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are actually looking for content to fill, because we don't all get time with you or others, right? So we're driving online, we're looking for these bits of knowledge, but that bit there that you kind of said, like, I'm just actually reflecting on my own thing. What am I building my idea for? And there's certainly a part where I think it's going to be my ticket out. And I'm just wondering, jeepers, that's really risky.
Yeah.
Because you really got to make it home run first try.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's actually like where, from Dad's perspective, he was doing the same. He was trying to build something as his exit strategy, right? This is his whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's the bit I didn't like. It's like, if this business had to deliver everything for me for my financial freedom into the future, I'd be shit scared. I'd be shit scared. The amount of dumb stuff I do in this business to try to progress it forward, I wouldn't have taken those risks because I'd be too worried that I'm going to screw everything up for me and my wife, and actually like all the team.
Mm.
But knowing that this isn't the end game, this is just part of the game, and that my end game's actually taken care of, and I've hedged my bets that way, I can be a lot riskier. I'm not stupid when it comes to taking those risks. I'm still making sure the risks that I take are calculated, but I can take probably a little bit more of a risk than someone else would because I'm not so worried. I also, the other thing I learned from Dad with his risk is that he had a lot on the line. You know, he had multiple properties that were mortgaged and leveraged and all these sorts of assets and things he had to buy and expenses. And so I live pretty humbly. I wear the same clothes every day. We don't own a house. You know, like everything's gone back into this. So I also don't have I can scale up and down in my expenses quite quickly. Obviously, my biggest expense now are people, and that's not something you can just scale up and down because that's real people's livelihoods. But we are also very, very careful with who we bring on and how we bring people on.
Absolutely. So that insight that, you're talking about, do you think people think you're like that?
Nah.
Do you think they think, well, I guess what am I trying to explore here? Is there's this idea of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's like balls to the wall. We're just going to keep going till we make it.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's exactly what people think.
Yeah.
So my brother Wayne, who's nowhere near as risk-taking as I am, he whenever he sees me do another thing like getting the new lease on the new building, he just walks in and he's like, mate, you just have the biggest set of nuts I've ever seen. Every time that's his comment, because he can't understand how I could possibly take that sort of risk. But he hasn't seen all the back end. He hasn't seen all the calculations, all the deliberation we've had with the team. The whole leadership team made that decision, actually. Together, we made the decision to take on the new lease. It wasn't just me. It was a consensus between the leadership team. And there's a lot of work that goes into making sure of that. But people don't see that because I'm not going to show them, oh, by the way, here's my spreadsheets that you'll want. They don't want to see that. Yeah. They wouldn't even understand it anyway if they looked at it. But that's okay. I think doing these sorts of interviews is really important for me to then share that story. That don't be an idiot and just go get a lease because Stan got a lease. There's a lot of work that goes in the background to make sure that this is the right next step.
Yeah.
It took us a year to sign a lease. It took us a year to find the right property, get the leadership team on board, understand that our forecast could deliver the revenue we needed to pay it. A year of research and finding a lease. I mean, some people might go out and make that decision in a month. And it's just like, no. You think I'm being risky? This took me a year of planning. You're just finding out about it.
Are these the chats you have at home with your wife? I guess, what version does she see?
She's along for the whole journey.
Yeah.
Always. When it's a thought in my head, she's the first to hear.
Yeah.
So the most common phrase I say to my wife is, so I've been thinking. And she's like, all right, well, I don't have time to hear your thinking. Or, okay, let me stop what I'm doing. I need to listen. And typically she will ignore them the first 3 or 4 times until she's like, okay, you've said this multiple times now.
Right.
Okay, let's figure this out. What are you trying to do?
That's interesting. So she's like a bit of a barometer. If it's once and gone, wasn't meant to be. But if it's stuck in your subconscious somewhere,
she starts to press it a little bit. She tests me. She plays the devil advocate a lot of the time. So before it even gets to the leadership team or anyone in my team, actually, it's gone through Claire vetting process. And she'll have a list of requirements we need to satisfy for her to be okay to sign it off as well. So although I'm the CEO of the business, she is a 50% shareholder. She is my wife. At the end of the day, I've got to go home to her. She has equal say in every big decision. I'd say every big decision, all the small decisions. She's like, that's your job. You're the CEO. You run the business. But on the big decisions, especially ones that are long-term impacts, she has a say.
Does she have a careful eye over people you interact with in terms of their intentions with you?
In terms of other partners in business?
No, in terms of, are they coming in to take from you or to learn from you or to give as much as you give?
Not as much. She understands one of my probably best skills is measuring, taking the measure of people. Probably one of the best skills I've got in business. It's what I do, actually. It is my job.
Right.
I take the measure of my team and the people that come through the business. So she's okay to delegate that sort of responsibility to me. She doesn't really look at it. It's something that I probably do the best out of both of us in terms of our relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting. I asked that because my wife gave me a gift this week, which was, she said, look, drive me to schools and I'll go in. And I was like, really? she's like, yeah, I can do this. I know how to talk to the, the gatekeeper, the reception
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And if the principal's there, I'll get in front of them. And I'm like, damn, thanks, sweetie.
Yeah.
Because when I look at myself when I go in, I've got to overcome their thought of who's this giant dude, and because I'm quite big in real life, and I'm always kind of maybe overthinking it. I think if I can get to where I need to be, which is the class, I'll be fine. I know the rules there, but I've got to get through these gatekeepers. So I was thinking about kind of, maybe people in business. Maybe one of the things we don't talk about enough is the people we go home to.
Yeah.
Their role in our life. I like that it's kind of fair in some ways, that you might not be really great at picking staff or, a board, but you can aim to have someone on your team who loves you forever,
100%.
And I've kind of folled your online journey. You got married and you went down that pathway and has it been fantastic?
Oh, I mean, she is, the guys know in the team that she's the backbone of it all. Like, I might be the business guy and the entrepreneur, but like, it doesn't work without her playing her role, like her keeping me in check, her keeping me on the straight and narrow as well. And like, entrepreneurs we are risk takers. We are a little bit crazy. We have to be to take the risks that we do and do the things that we do. So you need someone like that in your corner who can just reel you in when they need to.
Yeah.
And she also does things that are like special projects that like we couldn't do, like the office at the moment. The fit out that she's doing, that she's project managing essentially, we couldn't have taken this lease if we didn't have her, because I couldn't afford to hire a project manager to do this. And if she wasn't willing to like go in and like paint the walls and like work with the electrician and the plumber and the IT people and do all the things, we actually, the numbers wouldn't have stacked up to take this lease. So we would have been stuck here for a bit longer until we found a better deal. So there's things like that she helps. She inserts herself at the crucial moments to like help move us forward to the next stage. This whole building that we're sitting, she painted these walls, like she did all of this stuff without that support, and then the support for me. Like, we talk about it, how she loves to, her like love language, if you would, is like acts of service. And so her ability to like look after me, make sure that I've got, I got clean clothes, I look after my health, I get to the gym, I eat properly. That's like her thing, because she knows that if I don't do that, this business suffers.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I don't have the energy to perform at work, we go backwards.
Yeah. It's almost like a little secret CEO of the CEO.
100%.
That's awesome.
100%. I think CEOs are like, we're just big babies.
Yeah.
Like we just need to be coddled
and
then rolled out when they need us. And I really think that's the truth. Like I've learned that over the years, like the more sort of important my job becomes, the less I actually do, and the more effort the more I have to just make these crucial decisions and just focus on those, and everything else has to be taken care of me. And I actually can't look after myself. And I learned it. I talked to a few guys in their twilight of their careers who then real struggled when their career ended, because they're like, well, what am I now? Like, I do nothing except make big decisions.
Yeah.
And those decisions have been taken away from me. And that's a real interesting place to be in. And I've seen a lot of guys. So that's something I've also thought about, like, what happens when this career comes to an end?
Yeah.
I have nothing left as well. So that's something I've also thought about, like, the bigger I become, the less I do. Anyway, going on a tangent.
Yeah, man. No, that's fantastic. And so you've highlighted this kind of other chapter in your life, which was not the CEO, where you were, I guess, what everyone is framing in their mind as what not to do, which is to be the employee. But I get the sense that you're kind of very proud of that. Can you just walk us through, I guess, that quick journey? So, Manure was schooling, uni, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, so I started in hospitality at the Sky Tower. I was working at the Observatory restaurant that was there, an old buffet restaurant, clearing tables. I wasn't good for much else except carrying lots of plates, I was the biggest guy in the team pretty much, island boy coming in and working in one of these central city restaurants. So they got me clearing lots of plates. And I did that for a while. I learned, it was like my first dip into that world where I started to learn about wine and food and coffee and whatnot. I then dropped out of uni and moved to Australia. And in Australia, I was trying to find a few jobs here and there, and I did a bit of random stuff. The GFC hit at the time. And then I finally got a job back in a hotel. And that was pretty much it. Like, I had a hotel there that I was lucky enough to meet a guy called Vikas. Vikas Malhotra, who's now passed away, but at the time, like he, like speaking this podcast, became like my greatest mentor
Awesome.
for a lot of my career. And he pulled me aside one day and saying, like, you're pretty smart, eh? Like, you should try. You should really try. Because if you try, I can take your career where you want it to go. But if you don't want to try, just let me know and I'll still use you. You can carry heavy things, so you're great. You're really good for us. But if you want to try, I can help you with your career.
Wow. And so just on that,
Yeah.
why didn't you kind of be like, what are you talking about? Or were you just looking for something at that time to, a positive challenge maybe?
At that time, I was just looking to pay bills, right?
Interesting.
As they say, I was young, dumb, and full of, and so I was just in Gold Coast doing the things.
Yeah.
And I was just having a good time. I was 21. And
yes. And this dude saw potential.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the things I think about mentoring is like, it's quite unfair because someone good for you, there's more chances you won't interact with them. And so a series of circumstances that had to cross your paths.
100%.
And I mean, do you kind of pin that as a pivotal moment?
100%. I can still completely picture the moment standing at the reception desk of the restaurant. It was called Sirocco at the Holiday Inn, Service Paradise, and him pulling me aside as I was running to grab another table for the room setup. And he just pulls me aside. I was like, come here. And he wasn't even my direct manager, right? So he was 2 levels above me. And food and beverage director. No reason for him to talking to me. I was a food and beverage attendant. I was like not his staff. Like I was in a different place. But he had seen something. And so like it was just such a chance thing for him to take. And he was like, I've met a few people like him in my career, and what he could do is like see people and be like, that's the guy. Like he just knew. And every time he backed someone, they won. And I was just one of those people, but he was a bit of like a leadership factory, right? Like a lot of the guys that I know who've gone on to have awesome careers came from him.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
so what did he say? He said, if you want to work.
He just said, what are you doing with your life? Essentially, like, are you here to just have fun and earn enough money to get some beers on the weekend or in the evening? Or are you trying to get a career? And I said, oh, look, I don't really know, to be honest. I just dropped out of uni and I ran to Gold Coast to live and tried something new. And he's like, okay, well, go home, think about it, call your mum, because he knew I was a bit of a mama's boy. He's like, call your mum, tell her that there's an opportunity here to progress your career, and if you want it, I'll give it to you. It might take some time, but I'll give it to you.
And did you go call your mum?
Yeah.
What did you say? Hey, mum, it's me.
Yeah, I just said essentially I said to her, I want to take this shot. I was 21 at the time, right? I didn't know where I was going, and she was kind of worried as well. I told her I was leaving to move to the Gold Coast with 24 hours notice and dropped out of uni and all this sort of stuff. And so I just said to her, look, I'm thinking I might just stay longer. I've been there not quite a year yet. I said, I'm going to give this a crack. And she said, all right, like if you think it's the right thing, like I'll back you. And
that's love, of a mum.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've got 19-year-old, 17-year-old and a 6.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine doing that. In fact, Stanley, I watched my 17-year-old drive on his restricted. He took my car and he got out of our pretty tricky driveway, it's fucking oncoming traffic and whatnot. And I stood there and looked and I was like, I don't like this at all. I'll drive you, buddy, but I have to let him go.
You have to.
And it was brutal, and maybe that's just how I'm made up.
Yeah.
But I think about your mum.
Yeah. Because mum told me later on, she was like, I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. She's like, when you left, I thought you'd just go to Australia for the weekend and you'll be back. Yeah. And then she's like, you came back 12 years later.
And I guess, the romantic story would be that, this dude said something and it changed your life, but I guess it nudged you in the right direction. Yeah. Skip us forward. What were the kind of milestones that I guess you were able to build on?
So quite quickly, I became a supervisor. Yeah. I promoted me into a supervisor position. I crushed that role. I did really well. Because I understood business quite well and I understood financials. Math has always come easy to me, and I understood the numbers, and I got a real understanding of P&Ls. That quickly transpired to about 6 months later. Actually, it was only about 6 months later. The Holiday in Brisbane was looking for an events manager to run their banqueting department, and he came to me saying, "Hey, this job's up. I'm putting you forward for it. Do you want to go for it?" And I was like, "Yep." So put it forward. He rang their F&B director and was like, "This is the guy. Just take him."
Yeah.
So I pretty much just got handed that role as well. I did that role for a while. I then decided about a year and a half in that I'd take off to the UK and do my OE thing that I wanted to do. Did that, ran a restaurant over there for a little bit. And then when I moved back, I did a couple of jobs where I worked for different people, but then Vikas rung me again. He's like, hey, I've got this assistant food and beverage director role for you if you want it. It's at Crown Plaza at this time. So he brought me back into that, and that took me from venue manager sort of level to this assistant food and beverage director level.
Yes.
So he took me that next stage of my career again. I was with him for a while. That business, it was one of the most successful uplifts in profit I'd ever done for any of the business up to that. I think we generated them an extra $1 million in profit in a year when we were there. That then allowed me to go for a director of food and beverage role, which I'd found one down in Central Coast, Australia. Again, because heard that I'd applied for it, rung their GM. This is the guy you want, take him. So I got that role. Look, it wasn't all just him ringing, but it definitely helps when you have that referral, as people know.
100%.
I then finished that role. I went to Japan and sort of quit my job because I was there for about 2 years, couldn't find the next stage. And I said, I'm going to take a bit break in my career. My now wife at the time, she moved back from London to be with me. We went to Japan. And then 4 months in Japan, Vikas rings me again. He's like, hey, I got this new hotel. I need you to take over food and beverage. So I came back for him. I didn't want to, but because he had helped me so much, he needed the help. So I was like, okay, I'll be there. Can you get Claire a job too? He's like, yep, I need a senior events manager as well. So we both came back. And then some stuff went down at that hotel. It wasn't a great hotel.
Yeah.
The GM person above Vikas got let go. And so we all decided, you know what, this is pretty toxic. So we went for other jobs. I then went to Melbourne. I then started working at the Ridges as food and beverage director. And I met my second mentor, Rob McGuffick. And he was awesome. He was just one of the coolest people I'd ever worked for at the time. And still. But what he did differently is he was same as Vikas. They were guys who could just spot talent.
Yeah.
And when I started working for him 2 months in, he's like, mate, why are you a food and beverage director still? He's like, you need to run a hotel. You are way too advanced for this. Why have you never gone for GM? I was like, I can't be a GM. I've never done rooms. And he's like, you don't do rooms. The guys in rooms don't know nothing. You run food and beverage, mate. You know everything. And so, 6 months after that chat, pretty much, he put me in my first hotel and I was GM of hotels. And then I did GM of hotels for a couple of years and before I quit and moved here.
And why not hotels here?
Couple of things. I didn't want to work for someone else. I wanted to give a shot at building my own business.
So your pathway had been building you to, confidence, opportunity, understanding people,
100%.
Understanding problems.
Yeah. So I'd learned everything around business because as a general manager and food and beverage director, you have to understand business through and through.
Yeah.
P&Ls, everything. And to understand people and leadership because that's all you do is you manage people in those positions. And you generally know everything else about business, sales, marketing, everything else because you generally manage all of that world. So I learned all that, got a great education. And then I decided I wanted to start a business. Didn't know what that business was, but I had enough money in the runway to keep me going for a while.
Yeah.
When I moved back, I didn't go hotels because one, I didn't have $50 million to buy a hotel. Two, I didn't get into what a lot of people do is go open a restaurant or a cafe. And that's just a terrible business idea. They're terrible businesses to buy. They can work, but they mostly don't. As my dad used to say, it's how you earn a small fortune. You start with a big one and buy a restaurant, and you end up with a small fortune because they just bleed money. So I didn't want to do that. I then looked at hospitality consultancy and that sort of stuff and helping people run their businesses better because I knew how to run one profitably. But it was all by happenstance that I fell into this because to build a business which I didn't know I needed, I had to build a personal brand so I could find out the value that I offered people. Just so happened 6 months later, lockdown hit and everyone wanted what I was doing from personal branding, which kicked off this business.
It's cool when you break it down like that because it's actually confronting too, because I think what many people do, like me, is they get a push in the negative direction. Maybe that's a bad manager or something like that. And they're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do my own thing. But of course you spend limited time doing your own thing because you're trying to upskill on everything else. And what I realize I don't have is all the things you laid out, running Excel sheets, understanding cash flow. And it's like I'm frantically, and I think there'll be more people like me than like you who and like on the surface, it might look like you're doing what I'm doing, but you're not. And I think you know that.
I learned really quickly when I started my own business, and I talked to business owners, that they didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
They'd never learned it. They were good engineers, or they were good at the craft, and they weren't good at the management of the business. And I think people underestimate how much expertise is needed in running a business.
Absolutely. Just lots of moving parts.
Yeah.
They all become obstacles why you can't deliver properly.
Exactly.
And then like you just don't realize your reputation's getting eroded in front of your eyes, and you're not seen as a serious player.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like even with like my team, they consciously or subconsciously know that, or unconsciously know that I'm teaching them business first before social media and content production, because like we definitely know we're not the best at content production. There's no Mr. Beast in this building. We're not the best in the world. So don't try to pretend we are. But what we can do better than most people is run a better business, be better, have better client intimacy, and be better people.
Absolutely.
And so we can focus on those things. And those are way more important in business, I think, than delivering the best service, because like it's so subjective when it comes to what is the best service or what is the best product. Like there's very few people who can put a stamp on and say, no, I am actually the best. Like take iPhones for an instance. Like you can't, like there are billions of people who will defend Samsung against Apple. So you can't even Apple, who thinks and leads on product excellence, can say that they're the best, because other people won't. But so I think when it comes to your product and service, it's really hard to lean on that, especially as small businesses. Like if you're an electrician and you're trying to say I'm the best electrician on the planet, it's like how do you justify that?
Yeah.
But what you can do really well is learn how to run a really good business and look after your people, and just so happen to be an electrician. I think that's skills that people underestimate. They say, no, I'm such a good electrician, I can do the job. And it's like, so is every other electrician.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, do you know Boris from LinkedIn? You know that fella? Yeah, I went to visit him the other day.
Oh, yeah.
That's who chewed my ass out and spat me out.
Yeah.
And all my last week has been a whirlwind because I've had to flip everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my God, am I turning into the Hulk? Is this a coping mechanism that I need? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Because he's like, basically, you're strangling yourself slowly.
Yep.
And I'm thankful to have understood that now. It doesn't make it any easier, but it certainly puts things in perspective. So I've now got to try and keep whatever's left of who I was and tack on to that. And it's a very interesting thing. But I think it's very interesting who you meet at certain times. Do you ever think, I guess one thing I've never really known about you, what's your perspective on things like, it's going to sound wafty and shit, but like spirituality, faith, because I'm wondering, for all the other Stanleys that didn't have that dude pop up at that time, what's your thoughts on that? Is it just are we in this just chaos of the universe, or do you think there's a bit of a signal here if you can tap into it?
Nah, I'm very both a nihilist and a realist on things. Like I definitely don't. I'm not religious at all. I don't really think that there's a higher purpose above what's in front of us. And it's not to discredit people who do. I'll give the guys shit if they start bringing up zodiac signs and stuff in the office. I'll definitely rip them a new one for that. Which they all do in their magic stones. But I think what I like about religion is when people use the word faith. I quite enjoy when people have that as their thing that they strive for, that they have faith. Because I think that like hope is a good thing. I think having hope and faith is a good thing, something there. What I don't like is when it some people use it the wrong way and they use it for bad reasons and whatnot. Yeah. But like if you've got faith and you need that as a way of like giving you, like helping you live a better life, like I'm all for it. However, when it comes to I think like the thing I hate the most in religion, especially as a Pacifica person and seeing it a lot, is like, I thank God for this thing. Yeah. And I really hate this because mate, you did this. Yeah. You did this. Take credit for it, because then there's a really funny skit actually on Ken Peele, sorry. And they're saying, oh, like, what are you going to say? Like, how do you feel about the loss? Like, oh, no, it's all good. Like, thank God for helping us lose today. And did all the things, and like, oh yeah, but like, what did you guys do? And say, oh no, it was God's plan. Like God did this. Like we only lost because it was God's will for us to lose, not my will. I wanted to win, but God said, nah, I should lose. And like they went through this whole skit joking, because on the opposite side, if they win, they'll talk about God and spirituality and stuff, helping them move the path forward. And we don't get to play the negative out. That's not a thing that people can do. You can't be like, oh no, I lost because God's will. I lost because I didn't try or I didn't do enough. But when I won, it's always someone else's. And so that's always played on my mind a lot. And I kind of look to, did I try enough?
Right.
And so I'm not saying that that's like a black and white rule, but like for me, my motivations in life have to come from me. Doesn't mean there's stuff outside of me. Like my wife's a huge motivation for me. I made her give up our awesome life we had in Melbourne to come start a business. And whenever I don't feel like getting up in the morning to do stuff, I just have to turn over and look at her and be like, okay, I'm out.
That's right. Yeah.
So I use her as my like that figure for me.
Yeah.
I think people do need that external motivation, but I think what I don't like is when it's put into something that's intangible and your happiness lives somewhere else that you don't have control over.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think about faith like that. Like, you can't prove to me in anything you can say that your wife loves you and you love her, but you just believe it.
Yeah.
And there's a few triggers, our rings and our years under the clock, but it is a faith in some ways.
Yep.
And so, but it's a much easier one to wrap your head around.
Exactly.
Because you can kind of agree that, between you'll manifest something.
Yeah.
And it might just be the strength to get back up.
Yeah.
When it ain't going well. And
it's also tangibly reciprocal.
Yeah.
Which is the thing I think it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Whereas like faith in a higher being of some sort isn't tangibly reciprocal. You assume it is. You assume that the spiritual world that you're sort of having faith in is tangibly giving you something, but it's not. And I think that's the difference for me anyway, is that my wife tangibly reciprocates the same effort I put into her back to me. And that's the hard thing I get my head wrapped around. But I also understand, like you said, with faith, I think it is important for people to have it. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have a great wife like I do. Like that's not, like I know I'm 100% blessed from that reason, and that's not for everyone. Or people don't have families that they can lean on to the same way, or friends. So having that higher purpose, and if they're using that to help them progress their life, then I'm all for it.
Are there kind of young people that come into your world? Are you that person for them now who will be like, hey man, I spot something in you and it's time to make the deal? Do you want to do it? Or do you just want to keep, hanging around? Yeah,
I mean, like I said to you before, like we've got some kids in the team who like you see and you want to back them. And it's a hard thing because like it's not, you want to back them, but you also don't want to enable or give handouts. I think that's the hardest thing I challenge. Like the guys who are the best in my team, I'm the hardest on.
Yeah.
And actually the guys who are the worst in my team, the worst is probably a harsh label, but the guys who are probably at the bottom of the that ladder, I'm probably the easiest on. Definitely in the easiest on, but the guys who are the best, I'm the hardest on for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, well, you want to give your energy where it will be reciprocated.
Exactly.
Otherwise, cool, do your thing, but I'm heading this way. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good insight. That's how I interact with young people. I'll often say, look, I don't really want to be here if you don't want me to.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you do, then I will give as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And also just like offering opportunity. Like there are things that they're like Connor or some of the other guys in the team will get opportunities that we put in places to have stuff. It probably looks like more work to them, but it's opportunities to do things that other people just wouldn't, because you trust and you know that they can.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine balance of that. Like I find it, like I want to be the guy who can spot talent. I'm pretty good at doing that and understanding who's good and not. But like the thing I struggle with is like, how do I do that? How do I not become a dad? Is like always what's going through my head, who's like, I definitely do, which is like, I'm giving you too much slack to hang yourself.
Yeah.
And I need to always learn like how much do I give and how much do I need to coddle as well, because you still need to give people a hand, but like that's probably the piece I struggle with. Like someone like him, I probably like let him hang himself all day long, probably too much. But like I've learned over the years he can take it, but also like knowing, fuck, okay, when do I actually need to give him the time? Like, when does he actually need to do it? And I probably don't always get that right. And that's probably my biggest challenge as a leader, is that I know they can do it, so I let them go.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes you probably just need to pull them in and go, come here, like, let's have a chat and let's work through this. So I find that bit the hardest for me as a mentor is my biggest challenge at the moment. I know who's good talent. I know how to give them opportunities and put them in the right places. But I'm probably getting to that stage in my career where actually, like, the risks are too high, like, Connor's now in charge of, I don't know, collectively maybe 10, 12 people, something like that. And so, like, that's a third of our business is in his hands. And so I can't just be like, oh, you'll figure it out. Like, I have to start. Like, before, when I told him to figure it out, I was like, okay, he gets a video made wrong, or he does this little bit wrong. But now it's like, I have to learn how to change my leadership style for these more senior leaders that I'm getting in the team. And so that's quite a hard thing for me.
Yeah, I bet that is.
Yeah.
Because I think about it from my first frame of reference was thinking about it from being a dad, but I wish to be able to think about it from being a business leader. But I guess, Stanley, one of the things that I reckon people don't talk about enough in business and mentorship or whatever is, like, you got to be pretty tough, eh? And if I'm honest with you, I don't know if I'm tough enough.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things I know I can do is I can make you feel safe. Hopefully in this chat, you're feeling good to chat to me. I think it's fantastic. I don't know what to do with it when it goes online, but I'm proud that it will be somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm happy in that zone. And I have been happy in that zone for a number of years because, you'll take time with me. And that's I like that. If you're like, nah, you're a time waster or whatever, I'm like, oh man, I got to look at that. But at the same time, I have ambitions. They're growing in me. I'm 44. It's like, I don't want to be 54 and be the zany podcast guy. I want to be to where I need to be.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing that the people I look up to, they're tough.
Yeah.
And they're tough enough to say yes, and they're tough enough to say no.
Yeah.
And I think most of us sit in the camp of I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting thing around that. Like, there's this idea that being nice to people and pleasing them is the right way to treat people. Like, being good to people is a good way to treat people. But actually, like, it's not always the right thing. And it's this confusion people get over sympathy and empathy. And most people are sympathetic, and so they'll be nice to people and they'll do right things by people because they sympathize with them. But actually, it's like not the right thing to do, because you're actually just enabling a behavior that's wrong. And if someone's doing the wrong thing, they need to know that they're doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And most people actually want to know. Most people don't want to be bad people. Like, humans are inherently good. With all the evil in the world, we are actually really inherently good as people. We would have gone extinct a long time ago if we weren't, right? And so the trick is to empathize, but people confuse those two things a lot. They think empathy is being nice, and it's not.
Yeah.
Empathy is being able to understand the thing that you're feeling, but not feel it myself. I understand it, but I don't necessarily have to take on your burden. I just understand what you're going through, and I know what you need to get through it. And sometimes that's a hard line. Sometimes that's a firm hand to say, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. Get in line. And the trick there is by having a shared language and a shared belief system on what is right. Because what's right is subjective. What does it mean to be a good person? That's not a objective thing, actually. And, you just have to read Plato's The Republic to understand how difficult of a question it is to understand what is justice and what is right. And it's not an easy question, and it's subjective to the environment that you're in. And so when I think about it with my team, I'll get a lot of shit about not being empathetic, but what they're really saying is you're not very sympathetic. And it's like, I'm not. Like, you are going through a tough thing, but okay, so what? How do you get through it? I don't need to cry with you. That's not what you need from me. You need me to stop you from crying and allow you to get back to this middle piece where we can't always be happy, but we always can't always be sad. There's an equilibrium as humans that we need to stay at, where most of the time we stay at. And so that's my job. So I often get misrepresented as like having low empathy or not empathetic or whatever. But what they're really saying is you're not very sympathetic, Stan. Like, I'm not the guy you come to for a cuddle. But I am the guy you come to when you're like stuck somewhere and you don't know how to move through and your head's clouded. I'll get you through that because I can empathize with where you're at. And I tell you, this is the way through. And so when I hear people like yourself say what you're saying, I'm saying to you, that's the thing. Like you're a big cuddly teddy bear. And I know you long enough to know that that's exactly who you are. And you're too sympathetic in those instances where you're like, the story about your son is such a classic sympathetic response. And like the question is like, how do you become more empathetic?
That's right. Yeah, because I'm also a dick to him. You know? So I'm mapping all what you're saying onto me, which is great because I'm going to walk out of here and I'm going to be like, oh, okay, I just sometimes need to be like I treat him to clients. Like, no, you don't do that.
No.
Why not? Because that's not the way the family runs.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how to map that on.
Yeah.
And actually, the bit that I misinterpret is the fear of like disappointing a client. And but if I think about it like that, it's like, no, they need me to be like that.
Yeah.
They will only pay me if I'm the leader in that space for them, and I've got to guide them through like I'm trying to guide my family. Yeah. Okay.
The amount of times I've told we tell our clients to fuck off.
Yeah.
And you're full of shit.
Oh, that's going to be the start of this podcast.
There you go. We tell our clients all the time, you're full of shit. She's like, shut up, like you're wrong, or even to each other. But we want them to do the same to us too, right? Like, there's no point in sugarcoating this. We're all here for a reason. Are we getting to that reason? If not, why not?
Yeah.
How do we get there? And in a business relationship, I think it's easier to do that than a son-father relationship because you've got a lifelong relationship you have to maintain. There are going to be sacrifices you have to make to enable that family to continue as a unit. And in business, it doesn't have to be. Your clients aren't going to be with you for life. They just won't. It's just not how the world works. You're there for an outcome. Get the outcome together. And if you're not getting it, call each other out. Like, what the hell are we here for?
Yeah.
I thought we were here to make money. I thought we were here to do this. I thought we were here to do that. Are we doing it? No. Okay, what the fuck do we have to do to make this work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about a couple of times on social media. This will be framing it wrong, but hopefully in the right context. Kind of like sell your way out of trouble. Am I right there?
Yeah.
Like I've heard you say like, hey man, stakes are high.
Yeah.
I got to sell my way out here. Or get the clients. And it was brought to my attention that, again, that cuddly part of me is like, oh, I want to have everything perfect before I go to the market. And it's like, it was just shoehorned into me like, dude, you're speaking like a dickhead.
Yeah.
Get out there. And that's what you do, right?
Oh, the mistake you're making is actually you're underserving your clients. And the reason why is because you're assuming you know what they need and you don't. Because how do you know? How do you find out what your clients need? You have to talk to them. You have to ask them questions. You have to dig in and find out what is the real pain point here. If you go on with an assumption, you put on a Band-Aid that wasn't right for the gash that they've got and they needed stitches, like you don't know. And so when you try to create this like product and service that's so perfect and process driven and all this stuff, and then you just go slap it on the table, and when it starts to like not fit through the square hole, like, well, what is you must be wrong as the client, not me. I've got the perfect product.
Yeah.
And actually what you've done is you've decided, you know what, I'm going to decide not to listen to my customer and I'm just going to do what I think is right as opposed to what is needed. So one of our hardest parts of our sales process is to charge for the onboarding fee. And, they're like minimum 5-figure onboarding fees for an 8-week period. And I tell people, this is where I'm going to lose this deal with you. You're not going to be able to afford this, but I'm not changing because without this, you're expecting me to go and deliver you to market when I know nothing about you. And so if we don't do this work, it's always going to fail. So I may as well fail before we start and fail 4 months in when you go tell the world I suck at what I do. And I only suck at what I do because you wouldn't do the work with me. So in your case, it's less about saying to them like, oh, here's the perfect thing you need. And more about just saying, what do you need? What are the pain points? Like, what are the opportunities that you've got in front of you that you can't quite achieve because of the lack of whatever? So I think like when I say get out and sell, what I'm actually saying is go out and talk to some people and find out their problems.
Yeah.
Because all businesses are solving problems. And if you can tell them, hey, I might not know the solution, but I know how to figure it out and I can figure it out better than anyone else. And I've got all the resources here to do it and I'll make sure I hold your hand the whole way through it. That's what we do. That's how I sell our clients in, and that's why we've been successful because I tell them straight up, first meeting, I don't know what you need. I don't have no clue. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know nothing. But I can tell you it's going to cost this much to figure it out. And then I'll tell you exactly what it's going to cost later on.
Yeah, that's
And if you tell me a budget you've got to work with, I'll design it for you.
Genius.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, bro. No, it's been cool just to like pick your brain about these things. I think there is a lot of people seeking, especially locally and internationally maybe, but lots of people trying to work out that it's not just the grind that's going to get you there. And most people look at you and they're like, oh, well, you just got to work hard.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you've got all these other little secrets that you'll share if someone asks.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't need to because you know them.
Yeah.
You went down that pathway. And, walking into your space today felt a bit like a hotel. Someone came up to us, you guys all right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool, man. Yeah. That's leadership in action, eh?
Yep.
It's like someone came over, say hello, you guys want something. Not that common from my observation. Most people get back to what they're doing or, hope someone else fills that void.
Yeah.
I see, one
it's
of those little bits there. Yeah.
It's huge for us.
Yeah.
The guys know that if there's one thing I'm going to rip you to shreds on, it's that.
Yeah.
Someone walks through the door and you don't look after them. What the hell are we here for? That's all we're here to do is look after the people that walk through that door.
Yeah.
Be it an interview, a new staff member, a client, a podcast guest for someone else. Like, it doesn't matter who they are. You just over deliver. The best thing I have is when I sit with someone and they're like, man, like 8 people offered me a drink.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
cool. Good.
Absolutely.
Good. I'm disappointed I wasn't 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap up, what's your thoughts on failure? Like, I have a question for you on that, but when we talk about failing or failing fast, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, a huge believer in failing fast. I think I adopted the language that became common in that failing fast is a really good language piece and like embrace failure and find failures. So I'm all for it. I think it's great. I think that we should be searching for no's more than yeses in life. That the faster you find a no, the more likely you'll find the yes. Way Nate in our head of strategy often says it is that I'm going to go get this wrong really fast. You can't tell me what you need. So I'm going to go do something, come back to you. You're going to say, that's fucking bullshit. I didn't want this. I wanted this. And you say, cool, got it. You couldn't tell me until you saw the wrong thing. So I'm really big on that sort of world. I also think though that like when it comes to failure, this is like kind of new thought that's come through my head in the last sort of 6 months is that like, I think we do have the language wrong in failure. I think someone asked me the other day, I was on a podcast with Lighthouse Financial guys and they were talking about failures and, what are some of your big stuff ups? And I'm like, I don't really think of them as big stuff ups anymore. They're just like, it happens all day long. I think the narrative we need to do is like tell people to understand that like, that is just it. There isn't failing fast. It's just you fail all the time. Every day you make fuck ups. The real trick is when you see people who are successful, the ones I've seen anyway, they just never quit. They just kept moving.
Yeah.
They just moved all the time. And it's that idea of like, it's those who succeed in life aren't the ones who are the best. They're just the ones who never gave up. Because time is the biggest and greatest like differentiator in all the equations. So 1, I'm real big on failing fast, but 2, I think that people should stop thinking about failure as anything. It is.
Yeah.
Don't fail fast, just fail all the time. So don't even fail fast, just constantly fail.
Yeah.
But you'll also constantly win at the same time. But just know that you're just going to have to do this every day forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And pick something that you would want to do.
Yeah.
I think what fucked me up a bit is I brought up such in a, structured, nice way that when someone said fail, it's like, for me, that means the end. Like watching dad cheat on mum and their relationship break up is a fail.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. But if someone had just said there's big and small failures, like that, like how you framed it, if someone says no, that just means you need to tinker with what will make them say yes.
Exactly.
But if that's a small failure, fuck them in.
Yeah.
But the problem is that wasn't articulated to me, or I had to go seek that.
Yeah.
And now I can look at it without holding on to it so much that I've got to have it perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So there will always be a yes.
Yeah.
It can be a no, but that's a gift because, like someone emailed me back and they said, not interested. And for the first time I said, can you tell me why?
Yeah.
Because I want to know.
Yeah.
Is it just because we don't want you, we don't like you, because it's not in this year's budget? And I thought about it in that small failure zone.
Yeah.
Because now I can map that onto something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but dickheads like me looked at it like code 10.
Yeah.
Red.
You're the norm.
Yeah.
That's a good thing to also understand is that you're the norm.
Mm.
And so most people think that way. So yeah, my advice, you're right. I think there is something wrong with the terminology we currently have. I don't think it's bad. I just think we could evolve it again. It was a good lesson to learn, especially in the tech startup world where it was about breaking stuff really fast.
Yep.
But I think we then tried to adopt the same language in all parts of our life.
That's
and
right.
It didn't quite work the same way because we weren't doing code. We weren't going executing on a command and seeing if it worked and going, oh, it didn't work, cool, fix. We were executing on like relationships with people. We're executing on like cash flow statements and things like that, which people then go, oh, I can't have this go wrong because this is everything. But what they actually needed to do is like break all of that down and make multiple failures all the time, which is one reason why we don't go away for 8 weeks, develop a strategy and come and present it to a client, because we will get a big failure going, what the fuck is this? Instead, we have like multiple touch points every week, co-creating the strategy with them. So by the time we get to the end, it's like, no, I don't need to pitch this to you. You know it's right. You made it with me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Just this final question, I'll be a bit careful because I think we live in a world where everything is like bite-sized. But if you were going to, share just that piece of mentorship that you know to be true, is there something that you're confident in sharing that no one can misinterpret, that they won't fuck it up? Because like Stan said it, and now I lost my, whatever. What's that truth for you that you're happy to share?
I definitely don't have something that can't be cut up and misinterpreted for sure. I don't. But I think the thing that I talk to my team about, and a lot of people, is like, is just effort. Have effort. If you want something in life, just have effort. Doesn't mean to work hard or do lots of hours or anything. Just try and care about the thing that you're doing. Like if you really want it, care about it. Because if you do, you'll put some effort in and you'll make it something. If you're jumping back and forth different things, you obviously don't have that care. Something's missing in that equation. You're not there. You need to figure out how to get an effort. And I tell these guys all the time, they can screw up as much as they want. They can do whatever. But as long as they know you're trying, like you seriously mean it when you gave your effort, it might be spectacularly bad, but I knew you tried. And there's ways of seeing that. That's okay. That's fine. So I just think like a lot of people, what we talked about before, the successful people didn't quit. Well, they're the ones who are trying. They're constantly trying. The people who quit, they're the ones who are stuck and who aren't trying. And so don't take that as, you're going to bite size this out, but don't take that as like hustle culture or working long hours. It's not about the quantity of what you do. It's a mixture between quantity and quality and everything in between of like just giving a shit and trying in the endeavor that you take upon yourself.
Yeah, boom. Stanley, man, thank you for letting us, have some time with you. I know you're a busy boy, and it's been fun to develop my relationship with you. Long may it continue. I look forward to being old farts together somewhere, 100%. Duck shooting somewhere. But thank you, bro.
Thank you for having me, mate.
Awesome.
Cool, man. That was a good one. Yeah.